In this tutorial, we'll demonstrate the key steps involved in a basic system setup. This includes how to establish a new site, how to set up hardware for a new site, establishing and managing schedules, adding new users and assigning credentials, and creating new groups. In fact, Aurora was designed to be set up in sequential ladder-rung order. Simply begin at the top and work your way down the rungs. This tutorial assumes that your access control system is completely installed, tested, and functional, and all decisions on site names, doors, input and output devices, and other naming criteria has all been established with the end user. Let's begin. Once you log into the software, select Site Management from the bottom icon selections. Then move to the top to select Site Information Setup. In this demonstration, you'll notice I already have 3 sites established. Your software screen should be empty. We'll show you now how to add a new site. Select Add Site. At this screen, you'll be given the opportunity to name your site, give a description such as address and location, set default access group, which can be no access or 24-hour access. We'll select 24-hour access. Polling suspension should not be selected because, as noted earlier, your system is functional and communication with your panels is up and running. Selecting this option is useful if you choose to configure your hardware before you have your installation complete. Some installers prefer this route. You can also set a photo of your site. We'll select a site photograph now. Once you have this information entered, click Save. You have now established your first site. Continue to enter additional sites for each location of your client's business if applicable. If only one site is needed, you may now proceed to set up the hardware for this site. Hardware setup. We'll now demonstrate how to set up access control panels for your new site. In this example, we'll set up one CA8500 8-reader access control unit. From the drop-down menu, seen here, click to display the selections and select 8-door access control unit. Click Yes to confirm your selection. This window is designed to allow you to enter all information pertaining to this access control unit, including doors, auxiliary outputs, inputs, IOCB settings, global input and output, as well as other additional settings. First, we'll begin by giving the ACU a name. We'll enter ACU1, 3rd floor executive. Next, enter the ACU serial number into the serial number field seen here. You can find the serial number located on the left side of the ACU board, as seen here, or on the inside front cover of the CA150, seen here. A password can be set, or you can choose to leave the default Keyscan password, all uppercase. Set the status as active, and then be sure to set the correct time zone. We're in the Eastern time zone, so we'll leave that Eastern. Then you can type some notes here for location of the panel. In this example, we'll state that the ACU panel is located in the 3rd floor IT room. For setting communications, you can select serial, network, or reverse network. Standard Keyscan systems run on a network. We'll examine serial or reverse network communications in another tutorial. For network communication, the default communications port is 3001. You can enter a static IP address that was programmed to the panel's netcom device used to get your access control system on a network. Pictured here is a netcom 2P TCP/IP communication module. For the communications server, you should select your server or PC name. In this example, I have mine selected. Once you have all the correct information entered for this hardware, click Save. Now it's time to configure your door control. Click on the Doors tab seen across the top. Because we're programming an 8-door control unit, you have up to 8 doors and readers to configure. For this basic setup, we'll first name door number 1, CEO's Office. Then, select the desired operation mode from the selections in this drop-down. We'll select Unlock Door and Shunt Door Contact. We can then set a relay time before the door strike locks up again. 5 seconds is the default, but we can set this as high as a little over a minute and a half. This time allotment might be considered should a reader be located a short distance from the actual door it controls. Here is where you can assign alarm or forced entry output, such as a buzzer or siren, that would be triggered by your auxiliary outputs. We'll briefly show you those in the next segment, but for now, leave this not assigned. If you wish for extended entry time to assist with staff disability requirements, or to comply with Disabilities Acts for your jurisdiction, you can set this time allotment, which will allow additional time for those persons to pass through a secured door. You can also set a time limit to trigger a door held open delay notification, as well as extended entry door open in these fields here. Finally, an alarm held open timer output can be set here. Again, this is determined by your auxiliary outputs. For now, leave it not assigned. Now look to the right of the screen. Here is where you'll set reader assignments for door number 1, which corresponds now to the CEO's office info we entered earlier. We'll set this door with in direction. While not seen in basic setups, anti-passback and request to exit criteria can both be set here. Finally, you can set executive group access here. We'll show you more on group setup shortly. Let's move now to examine auxiliary outputs. As mentioned, this section is where you'll tie output actions that are triggered by system activities or inputs, such as sounding an alarm when a glass brake sensor is tripped, or sounding an alarm when a door is held open beyond the allocated time. You can set and name your auxiliary outputs throughout this section. Now select the Inputs tab. Here is where you can name your input relays and assign them to the desired output actions. In this example, we'll set an action for the reception panic button to trigger a siren when depressed. The IOCB 1616 tab seen here is also not usually among a basic system setup, but this is where you would configure settings for the optional IOCB 1616 input-output board. The same can be said for global input-output. Here is where you would have those configurations. Continue to check back with Keyscan as we'll examine those in a future tutorial. Finally, you can select this tab to configure additional feature settings such as card countdown, outputs for power failures, invalid card or keypad duress, to name a few. Now that you've configured your hardware, click Save and return to the home screen. Schedules are an important feature that allow you to pre-program system behaviors and functionality based on a set schedule. Schedules can be tied to specific panels and the doors or elevator banks it controls. Among the many uses, it can be used to set customized times for specific functionality or to override normal system functionality depending on the access permissions of a user when he or she presents a credential to a reader. To create a new schedule, select Schedule Management. From the Site drop-down, select your site. Now click Add Schedule. The Schedule Wizard is a visual drag-and-drop interface made up of a horizontal 24-hour timescale and a vertical 7-day format. Now we'll set a standard schedule that will later assign to the site's Executive Office main entrance. This schedule, when applied, will open the executive main entrance during normal business hours, 9 to 5, allowing people and customers to freely enter the executive lobby. The schedule, in turn, will lock the doors at all times beyond that schedule. Simply use your cursor and point to the start time of your desired schedule. Click and drag until you reach the stop time. Here, I've selected 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Release the cursor to establish the schedule. Then repeat this process for each day you wish to have a schedule enforced. You can also utilize time-saving features such as copy and paste. As I'll show you here, we can copy and paste this schedule Monday to Friday. Now don't forget to name your schedule so you can find it later when you assign it. Click Save. We'll now set another schedule to control the executive cafeteria entrance to unlock between the hours of 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. Monday to Friday. Click Save. Now that you've established two schedules, we'll show you how to assign them next. Once schedules are created, you can then assign them to function on specified doors and control panels. Click Schedule Assignment and then select the site you wish to work within. You'll see an outline of the ACU doors you configured earlier in Hardware Setup. We'll now set the schedule for the Executive Office main entrance. Select the record for the corresponding door. Then, at the bottom, here, click the Schedule drop-down and select the schedule you wish to apply. Next, click Assign to Selected Doors to apply that schedule. You'll then see it applied to the above list, right here. Next, we'll select the cafeteria record and apply the cafeteria schedule to it, just like we did above. Click Save when finished. Groups are a convenient way to establish permissions and customize access criteria available to a specified group of individuals. You wouldn't need to assign permissions individually, but rather assign the same permissions to a group of individuals. Executive staff, for example, may need to have 24-hour unfettered access to every secure door and elevator, and also to override any other existing schedules or criteria. Administrative staff, in contrast, would not need 24/7 access, but instead access to selected doors during regular business hours. To set groups, select Group Setup from the Site Management button. Then select the site. Now you simply click the record and give the group a name. Continue in sequential order. You can create up to 511 different groups. Indicate here whether this group is active or inactive. Select this if a group is a visitor group. A visitor group could be people from the same company but visiting from another location, for example. The intrusion user indicator, seen here, would be selected if the group is to have access to arm or disarm integrated intrusion alarm panels. We'll establish 5 groups for this example. Groups are often related to company HR department terminology, such as executive, marketing, administration, maintenance, and IT. We'll use those names here. When finished, click Save. Remember, you do not populate a group with persons, but rather you assign persons to the set groups. Then you give the group access permissions. That will be covered in a subsequent tutorial. Now that you have a good understanding of a basic system setup, the next step is to enter system users and credentials. We'll do that now. From the icons at the bottom of your screen, select Manage People. Then select Add Person. In Keyscan Aurora, a person is established by creating a profile, which we're about to do. This profile can be seen and used throughout the entire software and system platform, no matter how many sites you may have. You only need to create a person's profile once. Then you attach and assign all sites, credentials, groups, permissions, and information to that single profile. You should now be looking at this screen. First, we'll enter a person's name, Trevor Gill. Then we'll add a valid email address. This should be Trevor's corporate email address, but it could also be a personal one as well. You can then set the type, which most often will be employee, but it could be a regular visitor or a summer student, to name a few. Generally, you would leave the person active setting green or active right here. If you wanted to deactivate a person, such as a summer student who is returning to school and will likely return the following year, you select Deactivate by depressing the button like this. The button turns red when inactive. Deactivating will render the person inactive as well as all of the credentials and permission assigned to that person. Extended entry should be selected if you wish to grant this person, if he or she requires additional time to pass through secured doors and entryways in compliance with Disabilities Acts in your jurisdiction. Optional fields, seen here, are a convenient way to collect additional information about the user that security may need to fulfill their duties. These 4 optional fields are here for quick glance purpose by default, but you can customize these fields that display here. Additional optional fields that are common throughout the system, or specifically for a single site, can be set in this segment under Optional Fields tab. We'll come to that in a moment. Now that the person is entered, you can begin assigning one or more credentials to that person. Select Add Keyscan Credential, or if an alternate credential is desired, select the appropriate credential format from the list seen here. For now, let's assume we're using Keyscan credentials. You'll first need to enter the card batch number here. We'll enter 025. The card numbers, which are seen on the card, which can vary in digits. Keyscan cards are 5 digits. Let's enter that card number here. Now, if there are any keypad readers for use in the facility, this is where you'll enter a PIN number for use with those readers. You can assign a PIN or perhaps allow the user to select his or her own PIN. In this case, Trevor's requested a special PIN of 1102. Finally, we'll give the credential a name for easy identification. This particular credential is a Keyscan CS125 36-bit clamshell card. Down here to the right is an active button. Unlike the person active button, seen over here, this button will only make the credential inactive. Repeat this process for each credential you wish to assign a user. To make life easier, when doing this, you may choose to use the clone feature seen here, which will copy and paste some criteria from a previous credential into a new entry. You need only then modify a few details rather than retype everything with each credential assigned. You can also see group access selections here. You'll see our Manhattan office among them. Persons can be added to up to 10 different groups in a single site or among all sites. But they must be added to at least one group per selected site. Here, we'll give Trevor access to Keyscan Manhattan and Keyscan Corporate. So we'll add Trevor to 24/7 access at Keyscan Corporate, and being an executive in the Manhattan office, he'll be assigned to the executive group there as well. You may be asking what the temporary options is seen here. Well, let's say you have a temporary contractor working at your facility for a 1-week period. You would simply add a new user as a temporary or contractor type, and then set temporary credential access here for a 1-week period. The credential would then be rendered useless after this time frame. Across the top, you'll see more tabs. Optional fields allow you to record additional details about users that can be common across all sites, such as cell phone, vehicle make, model, position, and department, or site-specific, such as license plate, employee number, and assigned parking spot. You have an unlimited number of user-definable fields to work with, so the choice is yours. General information can be used for any specific notes or details you wish to add. Site enrollment, seen here, allows you to quickly enroll a new person to multiple sites with a simple click. Transactions displays a list of recent transactions credentials have been used for. This can also be displayed in real time. And finally, there's a Visitor tab that can be used to track and report on all visitors to and from the facility for or by the user. Click Save when finished. You're now ready to begin your own setup.